doing?
Doing good. Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself? Tell us about yourself first.
Okay, so my name is Avigdor Gal. I'm a professor at the Technion, Israel Institute of Technology, that's in the Data and Decision Science department. I have been working on research for 30 years now, mainly in areas of data integration.
What motivated you to become involved with alignAI project?
I've been involved with responsible AI for a few years now, and I see the importance of it when it comes to data management. And also I'm teaching a course on responsible AI, matching between data scientists and lawyers on topics that are very relevant to it. So it was an obvious avenue for me.
What unique perspective or expertise does your group or institution bring to the alignAI network?
So we come from the more of a technical perspective. We are data scientists, so we know how to manage and experiment with data. But also teaching and being responsible for a program of data science and engineering at the Technion leads you to have these insights on how to do it in a reasonable and responsive way. And I think that this type of combination between the data management and the responsible AI would be a good contribution for alignAI.
In your view, why is alignment with human values such a critical area of AI research right now?
So AI is a tool, right? Like any other tool that we used throughout history. But it's typical to think about AI as something that is more than just a tool like we used electricity or, the wheel, because it goes into the very essence of what we know how to do as humans. And whenever that comes to be, you need to be very careful about the values that you want your AI to bring to the table. And this is a place where you start asking yourself what kinds of values that we as humans have been taken for granted for so many years will now be, eliminated or not being treated in the way that they should have been. And this requires more thinking, for sure.
What benefits do you see in the twinned model of pairing social science and technical PhDs?
So, as technical people, we used to think about our technology and something that there are multiple steps along the way before it becomes available to the public. What we see with AI is that as soon as you have a new idea, it may find itself immediately in an app that somebody is using, and not necessarily for the good. So the thinking about what will happen with my invention has to start from design time, from very early on. Do I suspect that something bad can happen with my technology? Can I put some guardrails to prevent it from happening? Am I comfortable with what I'm trying to do and what the app will do it for me? And this is something that obviously we need to discuss with our students, we need to discuss among ourselves. We need to make sure that we're doing things for good and that we respect the charter on which we were brought in as researchers.
How important is public engagement or science communication to your role in alignAI?
So there are pros and cons. So obviously if your research will impact people, you want to involve people in that so people will know what can affect their lives, what you're trying to do in a way that people will understand what they actually purchase or buy from you. On the other hand, we've seen in the past few years that whenever you do a public campaign, it may affect people in the wrong way. So we've seen campaigns over social media and what happens, and people, when you try to explain something that is deep in terms of research, sometimes people just lose you. So they like to have this very brief highlights. Tell me what you're doing in few sentences. And if you can't, then my span of attention will be minimized and I'll go and do something else. So it's a tricky thing to engage the public. You want to tell them what you do, but you want to tell them in a way that they will not take it into the completely wrong understanding. So that's why I'm really debating these kind of issues.
What kind of impact do you hope your work will have in the long term?
So I hope something good will come out of it, of course. I always say that I have like a decade delay between when I start working on a project and until somebody comes back to me and says, oh, this is interesting. And I had that a few times along my career. So I know not to expect some immediate gratification. And I don't necessarily know where my research will be taken and what will be done with it, because sometimes the applications of what you do are completely different than what you had in mind. But for me, to be successful, that means that the data that will be compiled using my technology and my tools will be good, in the sense that it will reflect correctly what it should, and there will be less errors when you integrate the data and put it into a machine learning tool.
Like, is there a specific instance that you can share with me about when something like this happened?
Like the 10 years?
Yeah, like when you did some research and then a person 10 years later was like, you were right 10 years ago. Because that's a good feeling. Like, that's actually
it is.
It's a good gratification feeling that you get on a personal level, but also it motivates you to keep doing what you're doing, although sometimes you don't see the impact of it instantly. Right. It gives you a certain type of motivation that I think people rarely get.
That's always important to also explain that to students, because PhD is like 3 years long, and you don't expect an immediate impact within these 3 years. So when I started working on data integration, I brought into the field the notion of uncertain data integration. So before that, people were looking for the holy grail, like finding the best algorithm to do data integration. And my claim was that there is no best tool, because we lack a lot of semantics when we do the integration. So the only thing that we can do is to start think about it in stochastic terms. Okay. So matching between elements can never be done with 100% guarantee. And that is why there was no single algorithm that managed to do it that way. And then, when I was trying to sell that to people in my community, they would come and say, I don't understand what you're telling me. Are you telling me that if you come to somebody and say, look, you have 50% of having plus $1 million in your account and 50% chance of having minus $1 million in your account, and by expectation you're on zero, do you think they're going to use your system for that? And I said, well, probably not. Probably not all applications can use all technology. But to start with, what is the alternative? The alternative is to ignore uncertainty. And to do that, you're actually ignoring life itself. So by doing that, you're obviously performing worse than you could have. And then I said this statement of saying, maybe if in 10 years' time somebody come and tells me, that your algorithm is good for me to be used, then it's fine. But other than that, I'm a scientist. Sometimes I just write for the bookshelf. And then 10 years later, there was one of the big software companies started a research center in Israel. And usually head of center, what they do, head of research centers, they would make this big tour around the big universities in Israel, try and figure out if there are any scientists that they can work with. So he came and talked to me, and I was talking about my research and about uncertainty in data integration, and I thought that would be the end of it, like many other talks. You say it was very nice to meet you, and go on. He said, actually I have a nice place where this can actually fit. So it turns out that when a company submits to like a big grant proposal, usually that company does not have all the skills that they need.
Yeah, for sure.
So they look for coalitions of companies to work on. And in Scotland, they had this office that was actually doing that for other companies. So companies would come and say, this is what we know how to do, and they try to do this matching. And he said, well, your technique sounds very useful for them. And then we came up with this very cool idea of a cover problem, of how the different companies, like it's like a puzzle, that you know what you need to bring to the table, and you bring the companies, and you try to minimize the interaction so they won't be competing against each other, but to avoid having any gaps in between. That became the cover problem, and from that we had several papers, and we had an EU project ongoing about that. So at that time I said, wow, my 10-year prediction was actually right. So,
okay, and it was used in a useful setting that you can see how
right. So it propagates from going down from the very kind of theoretical notion. It populates until it comes to some application at the end. So it's not necessarily the application that you had in mind for your research, but it's very, you're very lucky if you get a chance that it will be used in any way at all. So I was happy at that time, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time. Thank you so much.